This is Deborah and the Duke's Obsession by JIANA Lewis. Chapter 1, Dead Children. Okay, so that's the first sentence of the very first chapter. And I would say that it has interesting imagery for the first sentence. So when I was reading this part, each time the bed creaked, I would advise to specify where the sound is coming from, because the word "the" makes it seem that it is happening in the same room. I think from reading throughout the story, the creaking is coming from probably the next room. Okay, so this is actually also a really good, it's a well-structured paragraph. You initially give us the perspective of a young girl, but then she gets scared every time the bed creaks. But why? It's disconcerting because we forget that she lives there, because she shouldn't be there. It really drives the point home because chapter 1 title is literally Dead Children. When I was reading this, it kind of took me out of the story because the action, it felt kind of awkward. I was kind of confused and questioning if maybe the character herself was like uncomfortable. I myself was kind of trying to act out what I was reading, and it was kind of confusing. The action is a bit awkward. Only her toes are on the floor, and then she directly tiptoes to her destination. Destination. So isn't that tiring too? Consider rewriting so that she stands on the soles of her feet before going to the bottom bunk. This one is also kind of awkward for me. So here. So, because she grabbed the sheets and then uncovered her two dear friends who also lay awake. It's awkward because I'm imagining a scene where, you know how dead bodies, like in the hospital or in the morgue, they're covered from head to toe in a white sheet, and then a character slowly pulls it off of them, right? So that's what I was imagining here. So this novel is written in past tense, right? So I would remind to make sure to maintain that all throughout. Instead of doubtful, I would recommend changing it to anxious instead. Because with doubtful here, I was kind of confused because it made it seem like Lily is doubtful that now was the time to go, instead of the fact that they had to leave. It seems like Lily is doubtful the time to go, not the fact that they have to leave. So I would advise, try not to overuse stuttering like this. Repeated first letter, or even like here, first word. Especially because this story is a historical fiction, you really have to keep in mind to maintain a certain level of formality of the way each character speaks. So here I would say sounds too casual for historical fiction. This one as well. What must she be feeling? add more of what it must be like in her shoes. Why is she forced to stifle a cry in the next sentence? This revision is needed because she stifled a cry, has poor support. Okay, so first of all, I just want to say, of course, Jezebel and her friends are living a really sad life. They're living in a place they really shouldn't be, especially at their age, which is implied as very young. But right now it's a lot of showing. Oh, sorry. Right now it's a lot of telling, but not showing. So, especially since she's the main character and we're meeting her for the first time, as a reader, I really want to feel sympathetic towards her. So, the author should write in a way that appeals to our emotions. And a comment that I did add in the editorial letter was, the story is very good foundation, but just needs some revision because right now it kind of just feels like characters talking with each other and holding things in a blank room, and the exchange feels kind of flat. Like the dialogue itself is great, but the emotional part is lacking. I think a better way to say it would be like, it feels like a lot of stage direction, which is not enough to be able to tell an immersive story and get the reader to feel like what the characters are feeling. Same comment, it sounds too casual. Actually, just choose one character to say this line. Ask for some clarification here. Can you clarify if only the screwdriver is stolen or both? This is supposed to be very high stakes, very tense moment, right? Because they're trying to escape, but doesn't really feel like it. So consider rewriting this scene to have more action, because this is supposed to be nerve-wracking. So raise the stakes. They're in danger of being caught, right? Where did they hide these items? Because I'm sure, like, in a place like that, it would be hard to procure things and hide them in places in their room, because I'm sure they don't really have a lot of privacy either. How are they preparing to leave? Yeah, how are they feeling? That's the most important. How are they feeling? And I would also be interested to see more of what the relationship is like between the three girls, because they're escaping together. So why? Are they like sisters? Are they like friends? And if you read the synopsis of the story, well, spoiler alert, but only Jezebel, well, that's her old name, she'll be renamed to Deborah, from like how it's evident in the title. She'll be the only one who's going to survive. It must be really devastating for her, and I wish we would have seen more of that in the opening of the chapter, because we're not gonna see them together again. This is happening at the exact time they're escaping, right? So nighttime. Okay, so I would ask. It's also nighttime at the farmer's market. It's also nighttime at the farmer's market, which is very busy. Also, are in farmer's markets usually in the morning, like very early in the morning. So description in this paragraph matches the daytime more. And I feel like for me as a reader by default, since there was no mention of lights against the dark night, things like that, by default I would imagine that this is taking place during the day. And I would say consider changing the name Fantasia. Because it sounds like a magical place. More fitting for a fantasy novel, and actually reminds me of the Disney movie. Okay, so also my comment regarding the prose is that it's very good already, but I would say it needs some polishing with a line edit and a copy edit. So what happened? I don't know if you guys can hear my cat, but she says hi. Okay, so what happened? Rewrite this because it sounds too clinical. Statement that's simply stated, just there to provide information and doesn't make the reader feel curious or sympathetic. And actually, when I read this part, my reaction was just like, oh, this is something we're gonna find out later. Not, I feel for this character, I need to know what happens, I hope he's okay. Hint at trauma organically. For example, he sees or hears something that reminds him of his past. It connected to this point, so with a sturdy hand. I'm not sure if the author means he tightened his grip on the rope that he was holding, because that thought maybe popped into his head. Is this in connection to the previous sentence about the traumatic memory? That he gripped the rope because it resurfaced. If yes, consider rewriting it to make it a more prominent part of the scene. So this is a description of this new character, right? Consider moving this sentence to be after somewhere in the land Fantasia. Because when we first meet this guy, somewhere else in the land of Fantasia, a tall man entered the farmer's market. So we just see that he's tall. And that's it. That was the only description of him. So it would flow better if we just move this over here after this part. So I would say consider removing middle-aged. Because it's kind of confusing. It's confusing. Is she really middle-aged? If she has hair as gray as a heavy fog, it's better to... heavy fog. It's better to remove middle-aged and give her features, descriptions more fitting for an even older woman. I would advise the author to consider deleting this because it's just small talk about the weather. I appreciate the idea of this response being joyful because it was earlier expressed that he loves going to the market. However, it would be more effective if he talked about the hustle and bustle of the lively market that he loves to visit. I really love this sentence. I really like it. So nicely worded. I can feel that she is really happy and appreciative. Spelled differently, Mrs. Shirley. A style sheet would really be helpful to making sure everything is consistent. So I also have a comment here. He laughed, wiping a tear from his eye. It made me question about Daniel and Mr. Shirley's relationship. So is this an affectionate laugh? Because Daniel is imagining how Mr. Shirley is acting. He is very close to Roma, like family even. But what about her husband? If yes, consider adding a few words showing that both men are like family too. I would advise consider changing Roma's shocking statement into something else. Something still shocking, because there's this line that comes after that. There's never a day that goes by when you don't make me speechless. I'd recommend just changing it to something else, because when I read it, it felt kind of weird. It felt kind of awkward for me, since there was a whole exchange about how they were like mother and son. Sounds too confusing. There's just like a lot of words like just going around but not really directly going to the point. So when I read it, I actually had to like read it a bunch of times. So simplify. And I would add a comment, I'd add a heart, because I agree. It would be more immersive if the reader knows what he's seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, tasting. So when you write appeal to the emotions, appeal to the senses. At the market. What else is he buying? Why does he love the atmosphere of the market so much? Let the reader feel like they are physically part of this world too. Okay, so have another comment here. So we read here that most of the people in Fantasia knew of him. Okay, so instead of telling us that lots of people knew of him, you can show us that people recognized and greeted him at the market. A member of the royal household. I would point out questions that arise, and I would ask, Duke Marcus Beaufort. He's mentioned in the synopsis. So strong image here, but it kind of falls flat because it's followed by quote-unquote just thinking about it. So introduce the fear of going to this place. Why should we be scared like Daniel? Instead of just only mentioning the red light district. Wait, it should also be hyphenated. So I'll just hyphenate it here. You can paint a picture of how the streets look. Daniel is very scared, but as the reader, I don't feel connected to his fear yet. See earlier comment. Yeah. So also this line, I would advise to change example or describe differently. I guess that's why Daniel is scared, right? So you can give an example of somebody he knew or saw that God hurt here and how. Appeal to emotions. I think this was a very nice description. It was nicely written, but what else about the girl? The way she looks and behaves. Can you add that will support this statement? I'd advise you can add more action here, because so far she just snatched his arm. And the next line here, it's something that's gonna make Daniel already very uncomfortable. So I feel like this sentence needs to be stronger, add more action, and if this were a scene in a movie you were watching, what else would be happening? How would she be trying to get his attention and convince him to spend time with her? A nice internal monologue reply which mirrored what she said, which was her needing to come out a little more often. I'd ask, how is she trying to persuade him? What is she doing? What does her face look like? So Daniel is uncomfortable, and the reader would sympathize with him more and be uncomfortable too if we are shown more of what she's doing. So nicely written. It's essentially a sales pitch disguised in poetic language. And you know how like some salespeople are like very pushy and make you like very uncomfortable, very forward. Sympathizing more with Daniel here because it made me uncomfortable. I think it was really nicely written. It is very forward to make Daniel and the reader uncomfortable. I also like the parallel here, the color. So Daniel's like the clear ocean water, but then this young girl, her nails are chipped with red paint. Beautiful. Obviously, like, this is sad that this is happening, but it was very nicely written. Where is he? What is he doing? This line sounds a bit awkward. And the file I sent the author when I did the copy and line edit, I actually suggested it be changed to "this isn't your business." And just put that there. Dialogue is good. I think JIANA, the author, does dialogue very well. And I really like the accents. I think they read very naturally. So dialogue is good, but consider adding more actions and scenic descriptions to make the exchange more immersive for the reader. So when I read this part, I just wondered, how did he know that it was run by a grumpy old woman? I mean, yeah, I guess he could have heard it from rumors, but I feel like it's a small detail about this notorious place, and the red light district is somewhere he only goes to when he has to, and it's always like get in and get quickly out kind of thing. It's just a thought that gave me some pause while I was reading it. I think it was a nice description. I can really tell how he feels that a seemingly beautiful place outside is actually filled with darkness inside. It's an intriguing but sad end to the first chapter. I would keep reading. Yeah, it's implied that these were the girls we just met at the very beginning. I really felt sad hearing that this is what happened to them. And it happened to them in this kind of way. I'd want to know what happens to them. I just have this comment because very strong image here, right? The ending is actually really fine. It's really nicely worded, it's nicely written, but it kind of feels like it was lacking tension a bit. It was lacking some sort of directness. Let's dissect it on a line level. So he stopped and squinted, straining his eyes to see further down the side of the house. It appeared as though there were several bodies. Some details were just kind of repetitive, just to drive my point across. So let's see how I would edit this. To make it more direct, I would actually remove "it appeared as though." So I'd make it "there were several bodies lying beside a pile of trash." Because we already mentioned bodies here, and Daniel is not sure what he's seeing, right? So I think instead of several bodies, I would suggest to change it to shadows. There were shadows lying beside a pile of trash. And it felt kind of awkward because there were shadows lying beside a pile of trash, and then it directly went to Daniel counted 3 bodies. It felt kind of awkward, like something was missing. So I would add he stared. Daniel counted 3 bodies, and they were small, like they were children. There's repetition here also. They were small, they were, and they were. So they were small. I think it'd be better if we just remove this here. So, and they were small, like children. So I think that's better. Okay, so thank you guys again for watching, and see you next week.